Alrighty, sorry I've been talking all day, so if I sound a little winded, apologies
No
for
worries,
that.
take your time. If you want to get something to drink, take your
No,
time.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
So, I read earlier, seems like just standard general obedience stuff, right?
Right.
Did you have a couple of trainers already, was it?
Right. She had a trainer come to the house when she was like 3 months old.
Okay.
More to train me
Mhm.
and her at the same time. And then she went to a group training session.
Okay.
And she passed with flying colors. She was great.
Okay.
Just recently though, she's really, like, she's food motivated. She's counter surfing.
Oh, sure.
She's biting me, like, comes up and just, you know, tries to get my attention and nips at me.
Sure.
So I don't know what's starting her to do that. Like, she always kind of nipped all of us in the beginning.
Yeah.
And now it's, I'm
It's a little too much.
Yeah.
How old is she?
She's probably almost 18 months.
18 months, okay, so you're half cool. What have you done to like remedy the behavioral stuff?
I've tried everything pretty much. I'll either turn my back,
Okay.
or we have like a blocking board for a while, like we put up between her and me,
Oh, sure.
right? And then the kids would be like, grab a toy, distract her, give her a toy.
Mm-hmm.
And then that kind of is like, nope, she doesn't want the toy. So then if you got her a treat, that was great. She's learning like by nipping up on the treat.
Sure.
And then she's picked up barking lately for everything.
Gotcha.
So, sit. Okay.
And all those things that you tried, was that from your previous trainers, or that just stuff that you researched on like the internet?
Previous trainers and the internet, so I probably have too many things going on.
Sure. Okay.
To be honest.
And in terms of obedience, because the behavior stuff is pretty straightforward, not uncommon for what you're dealing with here.
Okay.
In terms of like dog behavior, obedience-wise, what does, if you could have life with your dog that you wanted,
Yeah.
like what would that look like? Would you go hiking? Would you go to restaurants or?
We spend a lot of time at the soccer fields.
Okay.
We go up at the lake a lot.
Mhm.
So just having her not bark at other dogs, because
Sure.
she just recently, she'll be selective of which dog she wants to pick or pull us. So, I mean, we're not big hikers in this area, but eventually it'd be nice to just that.
Long term, it would be cool if she, I've seen dogs that are off leash, that are kind of right next to you. That would be
Right.
great.
Or if we go to a friend's house in the suburbs and they have a backyard, that she could walk out there with us and not worry about. I think she is prey driven.
Uh-huh.
So like she sees a squirrel and I know she's gonna take off.
Sure.
If she sees food, she takes off. But it'd be nice to enjoy a meal without her, trying to get at it. So a lot of, we put her in the crate when we eat dinner,
Sure.
but I don't want the crate to become a negative thing for her.
Okay.
So, but I have a video of her, like when she kind of
Yeah.
gets a little aggressive.
Okay.
And sometimes, I don't know if it's just she wants to play.
Mm-hmm.
Like the kids will go to school and next thing I know, she's just, where are we?
Mocha, it's okay.
Can't find a recent.
Now, if you're stationary like this, will she like just keep kind of just parking there, or?
This, I don't know.
Yeah. May I see her?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Here.
This one. But this was just today. Make sure to stand,
Sure.
right, and then, but then she'll just start like, trying to
Very end.
play bite with you.
Mm-hmm.
Mocha, you've got your food over in the kitchen. I'm sorry.
And then, so kind of like what she was just doing here.
Sure.
And so if you say quiet, hoping like she'll learn what the word quiet is,
Sure.
it doesn't do much. So she did, when we've gone on vacation, she's gone to a friend's house who watches like 4 or 5 dogs, various sizes, so I'm not sure if she picked up bad habits from them, or she comes home and thinks of us as playmates, or,
Sure.
So-
Because she's playing with 4 dogs
Right.
like the entire time.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like camp.
I
She
just
loves
had
it.
someone earlier, I was talking to them, and it was a similar situation. They send their dog to a relative or friends
Okay.
that has their own dogs.
Okay,
And they come back and it's like coming back like, just like all over the place because they're used to playing the entire time.
Right.
But they were keeping each other entertained.
okay,
Now she comes to you and maybe the kids are doing their work, or
Right.
if they're doing their own thing, you're working from home or something, and she's like, hey, I don't have my playmates,
Yep.
but I got you.
Yep.
I'm gonna bark at you and get some kind of response ideally.
Yep, and
right?
she does get a response.
Yes. So all that stuff is not uncommon.
Okay.
Anything else I should know about Mocha here?
Anything I'm forgetting?
Well, she's just very like not mood swings, but like sometimes she'll just like randomly start like reacting to something, like if the mail's dropped off,
Oh, sure.
she'll just start barking even if she's like fast asleep, because it's just like loud noise to her. So I know that's like common for dogs to like be reactive to those types of things, but she'll just like get up and then like go back or just like keep going to us to try to get our attention. So yeah.
Gotcha. Anything else?
Overall, when she's mellow, she's a great dog. So I think we just have to continue the training to get her to be a great dog. And we don't want to fail her, So we're just been watching your videos and seeing what a good job you've done, and we're just like, how can we get her where she's not pulling the leash or has separation anxiety, because we've all been at home, and when I leave, she freaks out. Kids have to control her and sometimes put in the crate, and she'll start pacing. So I do think she's got a little bit of that going on. And again, just recently, if she looks out the window and someone's walking past the house, she just is very territorial. She'll just start barking,
Gotcha.
which has been like the last 4
Or the
months.
bus, yeah.
Or the bus. And we're on Park Street, so there's a lot of traffic going by.
Sure.
So I'm sure she's just trying to protect us, but
Has there been an instance where everybody was gone and she was on home alone?
we did that, and I recorded her, and she barked. Pardon?
Out of the crate, right?
That day I left her out of the crate. It was 15 minutes. And she was fine. One time we left her in the crate for, it was probably the most she's ever been alone in the crate. It was like 2 hours. And she did not like that.
Gotcha.
Like, she didn't touch her Kong. She was salivating.
Yep.
So for the most part, we've always been there with her. When we left recently and she was out of the crate, she did bark consistently. There was like a pattern, like a bark and some time, and then a bark, and then it was like 2 barks, and then it went up to 3, and then, but I don't know if she would have quieted down or not. So.
Sure. I gotcha. Okay. Do you know what you're missing?
No. Consistency, maybe.
No, I mean, it sounds like you're it's not that you're not doing anything. It's just what you're doing isn't how dogs communicate, which is like the biggest thing I always talk about. Okay. Is like, aside from this, are we seeing the difference in Mocha's behavior now?
Absolutely.
Do you know why that is?
You weren't holding so tightly.
Well, that's part of it.
Okay.
It's a good observation. What else?
Probably your body language.
Close. Good.
Okay.
Like that you're like not like paying much attention to her, I guess.
Okay.
You should have like letting her be there, and like you're focused on like what we're talking about instead of like being, it's okay, or like talking to her.
That's a good one. Yeah. That's a good one. What else?
I think when you originally got her to calm down, you kind of gave her a couple pokes and kind of was just like, hey, you sit there, and you did that maybe 3 or 4 or 5 times.
That's correct.
And finally, she's good.
She knows
Correct.
you're in charge.
Correct. Are you guys familiar with Caesar Milan?
Yeah.
The dog whisperer?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm in Caesar mode right now.
Okay.
So Caesar is my first and primary influence.
Okay.
Then I went off and I studied with Richard Hines, my dog whisperer. But when I first started my career, I was fascinated by Caesar Milan. Like, I adopted my dog and they gave me a coupon for a DVD.
Okay.
And I submitted the coupon, and it was a Caesar Milan DVD, like how to essentially, you have a rescue dog, how to lead your dog, right? And I was just fascinated by it. So then I was like, let me buy his DVDs, right? So I went on eBay, bought all the DVDs, watched and rewatched and replicated and made mistakes and kept replicating and learning and stuff. Until I kind of mastered what I call Caesar touch. So you're correct, and everything that you said was all correct, okay? Because there's a lot more going on. Even though I was just sitting here with her, there's a lot of conversation. One, yes, I was not telling her it's okay. I wasn't talking to her, right? I'm giving calm energy to get calm energy, okay? The touch that you saw, what I did was immediately shorten the leash because too much leash gives her too many options. So I shortened it. I didn't keep it tight. As soon as she gave me relaxation, I relaxed the leash.
Okay.
But I shortened it to give me more leverage and it looked like I was putting her in a sit, but it wasn't telling her to sit, it was telling her to relax.
Okay.
But it looks like a sit to a person, right?
Okay.
And then you noted I gave a couple of pokes, which I did. And I gave a little leash pop when something escalated her. And when I gave that little poke, it was to disagree with that escalation.
Okay.
Okay? So dogs bite each other.
Yep.
It's as simple as it gets. Dogs bite each other. So what's missing is you're communicating to her like humans. And I know you got dog trainers and all that stuff, but dogs don't give each other treats. Dogs don't give each other calms to calm down. You know, dogs don't give each other fluoxetine and CBD, right? They don't sit each other down and say, hey, I'm gonna need you to be quiet for this next hour because we're on a consultation with Jesse, right? They don't do that. They just bite each other.
Yeah.
Okay? So like if she was barking and my dogs disagreed with it, they would just walk up and nip her.
Yep.
It does not make my dogs aggressive. They're just saying, hey, you're in our space, and in our space we don't do that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because a few times I will like kind of hold her down,
Mm-hmm.
like if she's getting too rough,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems that it will calm her, and she'll kind of move, and I like show her like, nope, I'm still gonna hold you.
Mm-hmm.
And then after maybe like a minute or so, she knows, and then I let go, and she'll get up and kind of walk away.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know if I should do that when she's barking, or if it's just when she's biting.
Sure.
Or,
So the alpha road, I actually don't do.
okay,
I mean, I've done it. I know how to do it. I don't teach it
okay,
because it's a good way to get bit.
okay.
Okay? Even when you got a dog that looks like Mocha here. Okay? Any dog that has a mouth and teeth
Yep.
is capable of biting. Okay?
Yep.
So here, I would give you, of course, tools and insight on how to correct her. So for her, and Caesar does the alpha roll, of course, right?
Okay.
But Caesar can also make a dog roll over in submission using simply presence and body language, right? He does do it physically, but once he's got that respect factor,
Yeah,
like you'll see me come in and like the dogs will be walking and I can get them all to quiet simply through presence,
okay.
right? And they just go, okay, Jesse's here, we can't do that anymore, right? So here, if you alpha roll her, you're calming her down, but then if that stimuli were to kick in again, she's most likely going to trigger,
Okay,
right? So like let's say the Amazon guy came over and you did that and you did calm her down in response. The next time the Amazon guy came over, guess what's going to happen? Gonna bark again.
yep,
So a correction is meant to not only stop but deter a behavior from happening again.
okay.
Okay, so like I was raised old school. You know what that means? What does that mean?
You're just raised like the old way, I guess.
Do you know what the old way was?
Not really, no.
I was spanked.
I was like, I was raised that way.
Yeah, I was raised the old way. I was spanked, right? So if I didn't do my homework,
Yeah,
if I talked back to my mom,
yeah,
or if I did something that I shouldn't,
yeah.
spank, spank, spank.
Mhm.
That was the old way, right? So dogs, there is no new way for dogs. Dogs are still in the old way because that is their way. They just, it's physicality. They nip and bite each
Yeah.
other,
Mhm.
okay?
So let me ask you this, the first trainer we had, she was a behaviorist.
Mhm.
So she was like anti-Caesar,
Mhm.
and she was like, no, you don't want to do this, you don't want to do that. And I'm
Mhm.
like, but I was raised old school, and I'm like, well, I mean, they have to learn
Mhm.
discipline.
Mhm.
So I don't know if, like, which way is right. So I think
Yes.
I got a little confused, and maybe it shows.
Yes, and so I just put this video up maybe in the past week and a half or so.
Okay.
But I had this lady come in with a pit bull that was very reactive. Like he came in here, did not like me.
Okay.
And the PhD behaviorist, the doctor,
Mhm.
put the dog on a bunch of drugs, put the dog in a harness, which actually makes reactivity and aggressive behaviors worse. It amplifies it.
Mhm.
So the first thing I did was I go, we're gonna put the dog in a prong collar, right? And the dog's name is Doug. Literally within the past 2 weeks, the video was up. If you want to see firsthand, right?
Okay.
So lady says the same thing, behaviorist. I put the dog in a prong collar, and within 30 seconds, I'm able to coach her and get her to calm her dog down without having to touch the dog.
Got it.
Okay, and science is wrong. Okay, and everybody jumps onto the social media and like is like now like science is proven. I'm like, if that's the case, then this lady wouldn't be here after spending so
Yeah.
much money
Right.
with two behaviorists. One was a doctor, and the other one was just another type of animal, positive only behaviorist, right? If it worked, I wouldn't be here. If it worked, you wouldn't be here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then that's why I tell people, dogs don't give each other treats. They don't give each other flossing. They don't coach. They don't talk to each other and say like, here's the memo for the dog park. We don't jump on each other. We don't mount each other. We don't bark at each other, right? We don't charge the gate. They don't do that. We can do that with kids. You can go to school or you can go to like a new class or something and say, hey, these are the rules of the classroom.
Yeah.
And they talk to you and you go, okay, I now know not to do that stuff if I don't want to get kicked out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Dogs don't do that.
Yeah.
Okay? So they're absolutely about physicality, and I'm not against the alpha role. Okay? I just know a lot of people that have done it and do it incorrectly and then get bit. And my job, of course, is to keep you guys as safe as possible and prevent that from happening, right?
Yeah.
So an alpha role, unless you're Caesar, it doesn't resonate as well.
Okay.
Otherwise, again, if it was working as well as it could, we wouldn't be here. Does that make sense? So the behavior stuff, the counter surfing, the barking, all that stuff, that's actually the easiest stuff. Okay, because it's simply don't do that. It's when you have to teach a skill that requires more effort.
Okay.
Okay, so do you think it's easier to teach a kid not to touch something that's, or to not touch something that's not theirs, or to teach them how to do math? Right?
Harder to teach math. Yeah.
Right? Because you gotta think and you gotta learn how all this stuff works. You gotta really utilize their brain.
Yeah.
But if I went to touch my mom's thing and I went, don't touch it, okay?
Okay.
Because then I'm gonna get my hand smacked, right?
Right.
Very easy to teach what not to do.
Yeah.
It's what to do that takes more effort.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, and obedience and intelligence does not equate to good dog.
Okay.
Just so you know that, okay? Think of obedience as education, math, English, science, sit, stay, come. Think of behavior as morality. Don't jump, don't bark, don't bite, don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat.
Okay.
So you can have a very smart child who or person who may not be a very good person, and you can have someone who's not the smartest person, but be a very good person. Does that make sense? They don't correlate.
Right.
So I get dogs that come in that know tons of fancy tricks, and they're super smart, but are terribly leash reactive, lunging at everything that they see. And the person's just like, I don't get it, the dog's so smart. I'm like, because we're not talking about intelligence here. We're talking about behavior.
That's
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So that's why, like I asked, what you're dealing with, and also what your goals are, because that's what determines length of time and cost and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So here, I'm assuming, well, you said you've been following us, but you're familiar with what we use e-collar and prong collar, of course, to train.
Yep.
Are you guys familiar with what an e-collar is?
Yes.
Have you used it before?
We have not used it before.
Okay.
We met somebody who used it and came here and they love it.
Do you remember who it was?
Oh, I think I.
Or the dog, maybe?
It was a dog. And their dog was so well behaved and she's like life changing. But we had met somebody before.
Who was it?
You weren't with me that day.
Oh, okay.
But we met a different dog trainer, probably over a year ago, who trains with e-collars. But I think she was still so young and I was kind of on the fence about it.
Sure.
So we're like, well, let's just keep with the group training, let's see how it goes. And she was doing great with all the commands. And then the behavior came out during the teenage years or whatnot. And then we decided to revisit it. And then based on education that you've provided, kind of learn more about e-collars and met people that actually use the e-collar and feel like it's been a great thing. So
Yeah. So e-collar, in my opinion, is the best training tool there is. So there's three primary kind of training tools.
okay.
There's more, but there's like three that make up the bulk of what any trainer does. One is positive only. Clicker training, food-based training, toy-based, whatever.
Yep.
They don't correct dogs or they go to the redirection type of stuff.
Yep, that's what we tried. Right.
Which dogs don't redirect each other, they just, again, bite each other. Then we have gentle leader and then prong collar. Gentle leader is more on the positive reinforcement side. It's like a horse bridle. If you control the head, you control the body. And then we have prong collar, which is the spiky looking one, which is meant or designed to mimic a dog bite. So those 40 to 60%-ish like success rate, where we fall short is when you take the leash off. Because now we no longer have physical connection with the dog that we can't make it happen. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So with either one of those tools, if I say sit, the dog doesn't do it, I can make the dog sit using the leash. So I can reinforce it. But once they're off leash and if they're playing with their dog friends, I'm like, hey, come, dog goes, make me. Right? Now I can't make them.
Yeah.
Right.
So e-collar, on or off leash, I have control, right, from the get-go. So like I had someone, actually my client yesterday, I had a client yesterday, their dog got in a dog fight, the dog park. Like there was like the arch nemesis, and they had only had one class, so between the first class and the second class this happened. And the dog started coming in, and he knew what his dog was going to do, so with the collar, he just jacked it up, 120, and tapped his dog, and his dog pulled away from the other dog. So he was able to prevent, because he was like, that would have been bad. Right? Now, it didn't work out perfectly, but he was able to at least stop an escalation. Okay, so that's like an emergency type situation. So even though he'd only had one class, he knew enough where he's like, I need to do something about this, right? So on or off leash, we still have means of connection, we still have means of control, even in an emergency type situation. So for me, I'm like, well, if this tool gets me on and off leash right off the bat, why would I do any other approach? And not only that, it's the only tool that gets you as close to 100% reliability or control there is. Okay?
Yeah.
Food only, well, if there's something more distracting, more rewarding, or if she's running away scared because something, you know, spooked her like a firework, you think she's gonna want to come back for chicken?
No.
No, right? The other tools, of course, great, but we're stuck once we go off leash. E-collar, doesn't matter. On or off leash, emergency situation, it's the only tool that can get me as close to 100% reliability as possible. Plus, it's consistent. All the other ones are inconsistent. What if the dog doesn't have any food drive? What if the dog doesn't care about treats? Now you have nothing to work with, right? What if the dog doesn't care about toys? Or requires you to do a lot of stuff that's just not realistic. The way we train so that people can just apply it to their life. It's not that much extra effort other than, you know, if we're doing recall, you do have to go to a park so she can practice coming when called. But other than that, the leash walking stuff, every time you walk your dog, you're practicing your heel. If we're doing duration type stuff, which is like lay down, don't move, you can do that while you're watching TV. Okay? So over the years, I formulated my program because you guys obviously have your lives, your work lives, you have your children, plus all the other things that come up in life. The last thing you want is to like learn all the skills needed to be a dog trainer just to train one dog. Does that make sense? So I want function, I want reliability, but I also understand that people don't want a whole lot of homework on their plate because then it feels like a whole second job. Okay?
Right.
So here, e-collar gets a bad rap mainly because of the positive only front. They use words like shock and torture and hurt and pain and all that stuff to guilt people or to deter people from using these tools.
That's why we didn't go with it the first time.
But we felt it,
Specifically.
well, we both, I like the facility as well, but
That was it.
I mean, when they actually turned it up, I mean, to me, it wasn't torture. I mean, it was like a little, you know, something that just stops you.
It was enough that as you turn up, you'd be
Yeah.
like, oh,
You feel that, right?
Right. And so many people are like, oh, just order one off the internet and do it yourself. But to me, I feel like we need to be trained on it. Because otherwise, if we train her incorrectly using the e-collar, I think we would probably do a lot of damage.
Yeah, so you can, and I've gotten dogs, even dogs trained by their trainers that were trained incorrectly. It's not uncommon. I have a handful right now that come from a place that's literally just not even a mile away. That's known for doing a lot of e-collar work. And not everybody knows, even if it's a trainer, knows how to actually use it correctly, okay, in my opinion. So that's why if you look up any trainers, we started recording everything in response to COVID, right? To show like people like, hey, we don't need to touch your dog and train your dog. Like I can coach you and you can get the results, right? It's completely transparent. Just watch a video. Look at other trainers. Nobody really has anything up but short little 3-minute, maybe 10-minute clips. And you're just seeing glimpses. Does that make sense? And me, I'm like, look, I have nothing to hide. You know, if you want to see my work, just go to my YouTube channel. If you don't like it, then we're not for you. Otherwise, if you're open-minded and you want to try something new, there's my proof, right? Is with the e-collar, it's the same. The technology is used on people. They use it. It's miniaturized TENS unit. Are you guys familiar with that? You've been a chiropractor, physical therapist. They have this. Have you ever seen when they recreate labor contraction pains in men? You haven't seen that?
No.
How about those commercials with the ad machine that
Yeah.
moves your house while you watch TV? Have you seen that?
Yeah.
That's an e-collar.
Okay.
Okay, so you guys have obviously felt it, you
Yeah.
said it, but the technology is actually used on people. They use it to break up scar tissue on muscle.
Okay.
They use it to rebuild muscle strength in case like you had an injury and you couldn't use your arm for a long time. You can't just like get up and start working out. They put the machine on you to start moving the muscles to start building strength.
Gotcha.
Okay, they also use to ease back pain. You can literally go to CVS across the street, go in the back section, and you'll see what's called a TENS unit, TENS, and it looks like a little bone, and you put it on your back, and it just moves your muscles to ease the back pain. It's the same technology.
Okay, interesting.
But that's the thing is that it's agenda, right? They would rather put a dog down than to correct a dog. It's literally a thing. It's called death before discomfort. And like those rescues that only train using certain methods, which is almost always positive only, and would rather put the dog down than reach out to a trainer like myself in order to try to fix the issue. Okay, because positive doesn't work, but it makes people feel good to think that they could train their dog using only positivity. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm the bad guy in training.
Yeah.
But I'm the guy that
Effective.
people come to that when their dogs, everybody's told them to euthanize their dog, right? Or they got in the dog that has multiple bites and we need to get control, we need to stop reactivity. I get clients who literally go up 20 flights of stairs because they don't want to see a dog in the elevator.
Right.
Yeah. Like it really, dogs
Changes their life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then I come in and they're like, my anxiety's gone, Jesse, because not worried about my dog going up anymore, right?
Yeah.
So your dog is actually obviously not that dog in that sense.
Right.
Yeah.
But these tools are what allow me to keep these dogs in their home. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here, in terms of like the stuff that you're dealing with, the behavioral stuff, it's simple. I would give you more than one way to correct the behavior, but it's simply aversive for things you don't want to see again. That's what aversives are meant for. So like if I run a red light, I get a $100 ticket. That's to deter me from running a red light again, right? But that's a financial consequence. Dogs don't have financial consequences, right? If we put her in timeout, she's not like a child who would sit there and go like, oh man, I really shouldn't have talked back to mom. And now I can't see my friends for a week, right?
Yeah.
She doesn't do that. She's all within the present, and she just thinks, oh, I tried to counter surf, and then this happened. I don't like that happened. I guess I'm not going to counter surf anymore. Okay. The obedience type stuff is the stuff that would take work. Okay. And again, you would just simply do the stuff as you go about your life. The first thing that we always teach is the heel command, which is walking with no pulling. Okay. I have a very strict style of heel. I take 5 steps, she takes 5 steps. I take 3 steps, she takes 2 steps. I take 1 step, she takes 1 step. When I stop, she automatically sits with no tension in the leash, and I don't care what the environment is, okay? Now it sounds complicated, but it's actually very simple to teach, okay? It's the method though, right? If you're not using the right method with the right psychology, you're not gonna get it, okay? But it's very simple. When we have that level of focus, pulling goes away. Dogs glued to our hip, right? And this can be up to off leash if the owner wants, okay? So once we taught the heel, I also see, what does heel fix? So heel fixes like 60 to 70% of problems. Anytime a dog comes in and it's not full on aggression, we always teach the heel. And then the next week I check up on the owner. How's everything going? How's the reactivity? Blah, 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 blah. They're like, oh, Jesse, so much better. And we go, great. Heel and the discipline is doing its job. Because for her, it's like the world's her oyster because she hasn't been spanked.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like for me, if my mom said don't do that, it was only don't do that until I got spanked.
Right.
And then I was like, whoa, don't do that has a totally different meaning now, right? It empowers them with the words. So then she starts to second guess things. She's like, okay, do I really want to do that? Because now I know consequence is a part of life now, okay? And then we see how does the behavior shift. So it's potential, the counter surfing and all that stuff starts to just go away because it's just indirect discipline, okay? And if it doesn't go away, not a big deal. I'm going to give you a means of correcting it, but then it would require what we call a direct approach. Okay, so indirect is when we do structure outside of the problem, but we start to see the problem go away. Okay, so it's really the discipline behind the obedience and the heel, the e-collar, the muscle contraction, the discomfort that fixes the stuff over here.
Okay.
If that doesn't happen indirectly, Then when she's counter surfing, I would teach you how to correct her as she's doing the behavior. So that would be a direct approach.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
What if you don't catch her like while doing it?
Right.
Like, for
So
a time?
unfortunately, if she steals something off the counter and you catch her like 10 seconds afterwards and she's licking her lips, there's nothing that we can do, because she's not gonna go back and think like, oh man, I'm getting spanked because I shouldn't have eaten that piece of chicken off the counter.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's partially setting it up so that how would you say, we're not just leaving food all over the place and stuff.
Right.
But if I just leave my plate on the counter and turn around and grab something from the fridge, that shouldn't be a problem.
That's what she does. I mean,
Right.
what she does is, she's very sneaky. She'll be laying like that, and if you get up from the table, and even if your plate's like in the center of the table,
Her actions have caused indirect behavior in
Yeah.
us,
yeah.
where we now put stuff in the middle and put it way,
Right, but
way
I mean,
away.
you'll be
so
like,
it's
she's
a-
sound
it's
asleep.
flipped.
She's sound asleep, I'm good, and you stand up and you walk away, and then boom. So she's,
So like when she's the fireplace stuff. Is that
oh yeah, and then she does do a way of, she'll go into our fireplace where there's like these little,
It's like gas fired fireplace and those like little like
Lava
charcoal
rocks.
lava rocks.
and she'll go to them, steal them, and start chewing on them, because she knows she's gonna get a reaction from us.
Yes.
So she's trained us like,
Now it's like a game.
yeah, it's a game.
Mhm.
She plays a lot of games.
Yeah,
Yes.
try it out of her.
And you know, it's not out the ordinary. You know, she's not a bad dog,
Yeah.
right? But she's learning to like do things to get responses out of you,
Yep.
Yes.
right? Because it's a response that's not really a deterrent. Does it make sense? So all that stuff pretty common.
Okay.
Just your typical kind of, you know, young dog behavior. But once you know how to correct her correctly, you should start to see all that stuff
Go.
dip.
Okay.
Okay. When it comes to the obedience stuff, we have 6, 9, and 12-week programs.
Okay.
You're somewhere in that range. Okay, and it just depends on how much control or how well trained of a dog do you want. Okay. So think of the 6-class program or 6-week program is we walk our dog, we go to the dog park. Okay. The 9-week we go walk the dog, go to the dog park, and go to restaurants. The 12-week is we do all that stuff, plus you'll be at a dog beach, plus you'll be off leash at like, you know, lake house or something like that, or we go hiking or whatever.
Okay.
That's where we need the most control.
Okay.
Okay. So you're somewhere within that range. The
Okay.
behavior stuff is, in any one of those programs, it's easy.
Okay.
It's just, this is what we're gonna do whenever she does something we don't want.
Gotcha.
And once you have the information, you simply apply it. Okay, and that's really what holds people back, is I'll give them the answers, but they don't want to correct their dog because then they feel bad. Right? So now we have a guilt factor coming into play. So that's the most common thing that holds people back.
That makes
Is
sense.
they don't want to correct it, or they don't want to go high enough on the collar to get the response that we need.
Okay.
Okay? So what makes me a very effective trainer is I will go to any extent needed on the collar to make what I want to happen.
Okay.
Okay? And that's why I get reliability. Because the dog goes, all right, Jesse will go there if needed. So I'm not going to question Jesse anymore. I'm just going to be compliant because that makes my life easier. Okay? And not every dog is difficult. I just don't know what your dog's going to be.
What would have more, if you did like the highest level on an e-collar versus her getting spanked, right? Like, I feel like a dog would react better to an e-collar versus getting spanked all the time.
Yes. So
Or-
I've had people like literally spank their dog. And when I say spank, I mean spank in a dog sense.
Right.
But I've had humans spank their dog
Yeah.
and their dog doesn't respond. And I'll tell them because dogs don't spank each other.
Okay.
Right? So what we're trying to do is mimic dog bites.
So
Right.
like bite her.
Mimic dog bites.
Yeah.
Correct. Without actually biting your dog.
Yeah.
Right? It's like
Makes
earlier when I did my hand, I do my hand like this because it, you know, it feels like
More
teeth.
like- Okay.
Ah, that's
So
why you do that. Okay.
So
Makes
that's
sense.
if you watch Caesar, that's what he talks about.
Oh,
He goes,
okay.
mimic a dog bite.
Ah,
Yeah. So because people will do the same thing, but they'll use the flat of their palm, and you'll see the dog shuffle around a lot, and I'll take the dog and I'll go like this, and all of a sudden they give it to me, and they're like,
Because I tried to
It's
get
the
her up
bluntness.
Completely
back of
makes
the
sense.
neck.
yeah,
completely makes sense.
Right.
No brainer.
yeah,
But I found when we get her in the back of the neck, kind of like how a mom would pick up a puppy, like she reacts better to that,
Mhm.
you know, because then she's kind of like, okay,
right. And but when you're doing that though, it's not so much a correction as really is a redirection.
okay.
When you pick her up like that, because then the brain goes back into this kind of slump, And she's like, what's going on? As opposed to doing something and the person, I'm very expressive because I work with dogs all the time, so I mimic dogs. But that's what that happens, right? As opposed to when she's doing the behavior and we correct and she's like, whoa, what was that?
Right.
You know? So, so for the 6, it's heal and then recall, because those are the 2 most important commands, plus this stuff, okay? This is the simple stuff. Heal is typically 2 classes, recall is typically 2 classes, which then leaves 2 classes to cover whatever you'd like, okay? Now don't think if you do with the 6, at the end of 6, your dog's gonna have 100% recall. You're gonna have the information and tools. Now it's practice until you get there.
Yep.
Okay. So heal is the fastest thing that people teach because they tend to walk the dog multiple times a day, at least 3 times. So you're practicing 3 times a day, right? So that's why that's the fastest. Recall requires you to go somewhere, right? Because if you only practice recall in your backyard or at the park across the street or something, it's going to be great there. But then when you go to a new environment, totally different ballgame now. Okay. So recall requires you to go to a park, Oz Park, Palmer Square, Trevis, like all these different areas of practice with squirrels, rabbits, geese, other dogs, people, distractions, sounds, noises, right? In order to proof it, to get it to be reliable. So that tends to take longer. So if you go once a week to practice recall, it's going to be a really long process. If you go once a day to teach recall, you're going to have a much quicker process. Okay?
Can I ask a question related to that? So with that recall, given that we're going to be using the e-collar with that, does it matter that, does everybody have to do that on a daily basis, or is it she's going to get the concept if it's one of us?
That's a really good question. So e-collar, so like let's say everybody came, right, and we did heal, and you did the first part of heal, and Mocha's all over the place, and you're working her through it, and you finally get it to click, and you work with her a little bit, and then you hand the leash over. It's going to just transfer. You're going to have very minimal nonsense, and then you can give it to one of the children, and boom. As long as they're doing the same concepts with the same number or whatever, it just transfers. So if you go to my
have Colleen go first, and then the kids, then me.
you go
I definitely need to go last.
I was the primary dog walker, and then he finally got on board, and then I was like, I don't know how you're walking her. I don't think we did a good transfer.
No, honestly, but yeah, that's good. That's good to know. I like
and
that.
if you want, so if you go to my YouTube channel and you find a class with 2 people, lesson 1 with 2 people, you can literally just skip to the first person, watch all the craziness, and then watch how they get it, and then watch when they switch to the second person and how easy it just transfers. Charlie is a dog that I took, it's Charley. It's a couple. And it's the same concept. You just see it go from one person to the other and just transfer. Okay, because that's the other thing about e-collar is it transfers very easily. As long as you're doing the same responses at the appropriate level, she's going to just transfer whatever she learned to that person. Now recall, if one person did all the work, recall is going to be tied to that one person. So let's say you did it, and then he called Mocha. She'd probably run to you. Because it's all associated to you. Right? So then he would have to do some degree of recall with her to teach her, hey, this also applies to me. And everybody else. Okay, so that one doesn't transfer as easily, but once the foundation is there, it just means practice. So then she goes, oh, okay, when you call me, it also means that I should return to you. The other thing that dogs tend to struggle with is voice recognition. Okay? So if, let's say, and it all depends on how well trained you want Mocha to be. If you say, Jesse, we want Mocha to go to the person that specifically called her, okay? That would take more time. Now, if you say, hey Jesse, if one of us calls Mocha, we don't care who she goes to, as long as it's one of us 4, you're gonna have an easier process. Okay? Because it's like, we don't care who she goes to, as long as it's part of the family, we're good. Okay? Because in order for her to learn voice recognition, right, that person has to practice and practice and practice until she goes, oh, your voice is specific to you and yours to you. They don't really generalize that off the bat. Okay? So again, it just comes down to what you want. So like when I work with couples, they might say, we don't really care who she goes to, as long as she goes to one of us, we're fine.
That's good.
Okay.
Feedback, yeah.
Yeah, so, because I always explain things, and I say, look, if you do this, it's more homework. If you're fine with it, go for it.
Yeah.
If you don't want more homework, we're gonna avoid certain things so that we don't create these problems, and we can still get reliable obedience.
Yep.
Okay? So, 6-week heal recall, 2 and 2, which leaves 2 classes. We can cover behavior, and depending on how she does with that, we can try to work on something new for that final class. You let me know. And this is, of course, if you're doing your homework. Okay, so if you're doing your homework, this should be a pretty smooth transition. The 9-week, we teach heal, recall, and then like a don't move, which is stationary control. And then the 12-week, so we have 6 commands: sit, stay, down, come, place, heal. Those are the 6 foundational, functional family pet commands that are meant to allow you to do more with your dog. So like my dogs, I could go anywhere. I could let my dogs off leash anywhere. I could be in a little square plot of land with a busy street all around it, and I'm not worried because I know my dogs aren't going to run anywhere, okay? Because I have that level of control. If you want that, that takes more time. And we teach the 6 commands all through pressure, the first 6 classes. The second 6 classes, we start to transition towards no leash. Okay, so it's a process. Because you're pushing for more advanced stuff, that would require more effort on your part. Okay, if you're looking for, we just want to have our dog, her not pull, her be a good dog in the house and not be like counter surfing, and for her to come when we call her, then it's going to be much more simple. Does that make sense? Questions?
So, can you, we want her to be a well-trained dog. We're like, we have a dog, she's a family member. We'd love for her to be so well-trained that, we're not worried about her taking off, because there's so many distractions in the city, right? Can you start off with one and build over time? So it's like, I feel like we don't want to forget things, and we're learning along with her. So it's like, can you do like a 6-week course and then you jump in for the advanced course later? Or is it better to do the 9-week or the 12-week right off the bat?
So
versus doing like a 6 and then a 6 down the road.
Sure. I know with other places you'll see like where it's like the beginner to the intermediate to the advanced. You can literally just jump straight into advanced. Okay, because it's just, once you understand how a dog learns, it's very straightforward. Okay, now I understand it's a business for a lot of places, so obviously more courses means more money. I care about, one, it's not necessary, but also I have a ton of people trying to get on the calendar that are booking like 2 weeks from now or whatever, because I'm that busy. So my whole thing is help as much people as possible. Okay, that I don't care what you do, you can do 6, right? And you learn all the stuff that you want. The only thing is I'm gonna teach the program differently if you do 6 than if you do 12. Okay, if you're saying we're doing 12, I teach all 6 commands, the first 6 classes, and the second 6 we transition to no leash, right? If you do 6, I would ask you like, what's your intention, to get an idea of it, but then we typically cover less, because I'm thinking, well, this is just a 6-week program. Does that make sense? Right. But if you tell me, hey, our intention is to do 6 and then another 6, I'll try to squeeze as much as possible. And then you take your time and you practice, and in a couple of months you can always return and say, Jesse, we're ready for the second 6. Now, if you do that, the cost for 6 is $950. So if you did another 6, it would be another $950.
Gotcha.
If you commit the 12 up front, it's I believe $1,675. So then you end up paying a little more, but if you commit up front, you pay less per class.
Makes sense.
Let me ask you this: do you, like, I feel like most people, you teach obedience first, and then you deal with the behavior. Why don't people teach, train the behavior first, and then do the obedience? Because I guess it's important that she sits, but it's not in my mind. I don't care. It's like she got that right away, but I'm like, I need her to stay.
99% of the world thinks the opposite. My brain works like yours. When people were coming to us last year for like puppy zooms and stuff.
Like you. See, you agreed with that, like you.
They were like, they had all, I kept telling them, don't worry about obedience. You can teach sit, stay down, come, all that stuff at any age, but you want to stop reactivity. You want to
Yep.
prevent it. You want to prevent separation anxiety. You want to get
Yeah.
that crate training down. You want to get potty training down.
Yep.
That's the stuff that matters.
Yeah.
Once we get that, pull out the treats and let's teach sit to a puppy.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's not a
Pretty- that's
priority.
pretty
Yeah, I
easy,
feel
right?
like we were backwards. Like, she does, one good thing she does do is she rings a bell to go outside. She learned that,
Mhm.
and that was great. Her crate, she slept in her crate until I probably, like 10 months, I finally said, you can sleep out of the crate,
Mhm.
just in our room,
Mhm.
with the door closed. But I feel like she's up at night. I don't think she's resting at night, because I think she feels like she has to guard the house.
Mm.
So I'm gonna bring back the crate
Mhm.
at night. Hopefully she's open to it and she'll get better rest, because maybe I think that's why she's more tired during the day and cranky.
Oh, because she has to.
Right, maybe, you know, so,
That sounds like an overstimulation issue,
okay,
where the brain's unable to settle.
that's
So
her.
earlier, what you were dealing with was frustration
Yeah.
due to overstimulation. That's what that barking was. That
Okay.
barking you showed me on your phone
Yeah.
was frustrated.
Yeah, that's
Frustration.
her, that's her.
Do something with me,
Yep,
right?
Mm.
And that's why here, when I took her, I just gave boundaries. I just said, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. So she goes, if I can't do that, then I'll just lay down and relax, right? And I personally don't care that she's laying down. She could be sitting or standing for all I care. I just wanted her to not be barking and relax.
yep,
But ultimately it led to this, okay? So the not being able to sleep at night is most likely an overstimulation issue. And that's just from lack of boundaries.
okay,
That's the most common thing that I see is overstimulation.
got it,
Because most people don't correct their dogs like their dog should be corrected,
okay,
okay? So that may go away
perfect,
with just formal discipline and stuff,
okay,
okay? But most trainers focus on obedience.
yeah.
Behavior is always the most important thing.
Well, and then I feel like I lost precious time, because now I'm dealing with the behavior and I'm like, well, like, why are you now barking and pulling on the leash? These things she
Mhm.
didn't do before, so I felt like, I don't know, I just felt like it was backwards. Like the whole thing seemed,
Yeah, and unfortunately, like the lady I saw before you guys, well, not that one, but the one prior to her, like 2 visits ago, her dog went to another training facility that does e-collar and stuff, and her dog was leash reactive.
okay,
And I have other clients from them now, so I already knew, but I asked anyways. And I
Okay.
said, did they teach you heel? And she said, no, they taught her to go to a bed. And I said, the first thing I always teach is heel, especially with a reactive dog,
uh-huh,
because the heel is the foundation for addressing reactivity.
okay,
So, but most places actually avoid teaching heel because they don't know how to teach it.
they skip it just.
Yeah,
'cause
they
it's too
skip
hard.
it. I had another client that she said it was the last thing they taught in the class.
Hmm.
Because I asked her, like, how did they teach it? And she said like this. I'm like, that's not how you teach it. So it's just funny. Like, and this place has been around for like 15 years.
Okay,
You know. So, but again, that's why we just put everything out, because we're like, look, there it is. It should be applicable. Everything
There you
should
go,
be
kids.
applicable
we
to
like
life.
that,
You
transparency.
can have a business for 15 years and teach the wrong method.
Mhm.
You don't want to do
It's
that.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a place that's been around for like 25 out in like the suburbs.
Yeah.
And one of our daycare dogs went there, and then they did a consult with us, and I was like, you guys just got fed a lot of misinformation. I was like, this is bad. And I've trained a lot of their ex-dogs as well. I train a lot of other trainers' dogs,
Sure.
you know, over the course of
You're
10
the
years.
fixer, the fixer.
Doesn't matter if they do e-collar, prong collar, or whatever. It's about how they're teaching, and it makes sense to a human, but it does not make sense to a dog. That's the difference.
Okay.
Okay, my method is very simple for the dog, but it's also very simple for the human, but it's also functional and reliable.
Got
You
it.
just have to do the work.
Yeah,
Okay, the most common thing that people get in struggle with is just correcting and then putting up the power if needed. Okay, so like let's say, you know, the collar that we use goes to 127. Let's say, you know, you're doing all this stuff, you're practicing, you're like, Jesse, she's just not healing, right? She's like, she was perfect here, but not at home. And maybe here her number is 25. Then I'll say, well, how high did you go at home when you practiced? We went to 35. I'm like, well, you have at least 100 other levels to go, right? Because it's about making it important.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And we make things important simply by adding more pressure behind
is it
them.
pretty, can you judge each dog individually pretty quickly or early on to see like, this one gets it at a low dose, this one, you know, has a pain threshold that's very high?
Yes, I
So,
can.
Okay,
But it's hard for the owner.
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So so the thing with how we teach now, it's this verbal instruction. I'm here with you, I'm present, but you do everything. I coach you through it. So you're sitting there and you're learning and it's all hands on.
Okay.
But it's very common sense based, okay? So then I go, here's your structure, here's your homework for the week, practice. Okay? And then you come back and I'll give you like, it's just a very, how do you say, methodical approach.
Okay.
So you go and you go, okay, hey, this is what we ended up at. So if every walk you ended at 45 and you notice that 45 Mocha was perfect on the heel, then what does it tell us?
That's
45 is perfect.
It's a number.
45 is the number,
That's
right?
a number.
So then we just
Yeah.
start off at 45 now. There's no reason to start low to high anymore. We
Yeah.
just start at 45.
okay.
And then you might come back and say, hey, Jesse, 45 was great, but when we were at the park and there was 20 other dogs, it was not effective. And then you said 65 was effective. And I go, what did we just learn? 65, there's 20 other dogs around, right? It's literally
You're
that.
like, you guys are a
common
smart
sense.
group. Yeah, okay.
And again, it's just people struggle. They feel bad because they're like, man, 65 out of 127, but look at my cute little fluffy dog. How can that
Yeah,
dog
I
be
think we do that.
65?
Fallon's like, 50's not working,
I'd
like
be like-
65's the number.
I'd be like, you know, 127?
What happens if like she's barking at us to like that if she wants to play with us
Mhm.
and she like doesn't want to calm down or lay down,
Mhm.
then should we like what type of approach should we take there? Should we like go and like take her on a walk or should we just like give her a toy to play with or like how should we approach that?
Think of it this way. If you threw a temper tantrum for a toy, or whatever it is you kids want nowadays, and your parents gave you something that you wanted, what would you learn?
That all I'd have to do is like make it, just throw a tantrum and I'd get what I want.
Right, so what do you think you're teaching Mocha there?
That if she does bad behavior, we'll give her something good.
That is correct,
So don't do it.
right? So in my day, if I threw a tantrum, I got spanked. That tantrum did not happen.
Well, and that's it, like we always say, don't reward bad behavior with kids, we don't, right?
Mhm.
But then when I was working with the behaviorist, she's like, you know, like I said, well, I hear you can spray the dog with a squirt bottle of water.
Mhm.
She's like, would you like that in your face? I'm like, yeah, but I'm a human, I'm not a dog. Like,
Yeah.
so I feel like,
But that's also the point of an aversive.
right, like, so I do think, you know, we have been rewarding bad behavior and all of a sudden
Yeah.
it shifted where we were in control and all of a sudden she became in control.
Mhm.
And I was like, how do we get back out of this and become in control again?
You know what the funny thing is? It's happening with kids. Now,
Okay.
it is now, you know, it's looked down upon, right? Like
Right.
spanking kids.
Right, sure, yep.
And I've had plenty of clients that are teachers, and all of them are like, kids are so bad now. Because you can't discipline them, because that's not the school's job. The school's job is to educate. Parents' job is to discipline, so that when they go to school, they respect authority and they can be taught. But parents are not disciplining their kids like they used to, so then they go to school, and then when the school disciplines the kid, now the parents are getting after the school for disciplining their kids.
Right.
And now, it's crazy, I've had so many clients who were teachers who are actually pulling out the profession, and it wasn't about the money, it was about the kids. They're like, we can't teach because they just don't want to listen now, and we can't discipline them, and it's just really crazy, you know? It's the same thing with dogs.
30 years from now, kids will have e-collars.
In a dream world, right? So,
Your
My
kids,
husband's-
your kids.
so I'm assuming, it looks like all this stuff is making sense, right?
Yeah,
So, the collar that she would need, how much does she weigh?
she's probably
35, 40.
35,
37.
37,
Okay,
give or take.
so you have a couple of choices for her collar.
Okay,
One is meant for 35-pound dogs and under.
okay,
Because she's got a thicker, more denser coat, I would suggest you go with the higher powered collar.
okay,
All it means is more output, which means lower level.
okay.
Okay? There's two you can choose from. One runs around 287-ish with tax, the other runs about 325-ish, and we'll
Okay.
send you the information for these, so you can go on
Okay.
Amazon. But also we want to account for, she's got her dense coat. I don't know what kind of personality type she's going to have. She could have a very flighty or anxious or nervous personality type, one put under stress, and we want to be able to override emotional state. Okay?
Okay.
Plus, in case of an emergency, someone lights a firework and she starts running away, you don't want to have to worry about, am I going to have enough power
Yeah.
to override her fear of the firework? Okay?
Okay.
And it's a very real thing that has happened to past clients. Okay? So, we'll send you the information for that. Then it just comes down to how well trained you are to do. You can absolutely do 6 now. And just remind them, okay, Jesse, like our plan is to do 6 and then another 6. And I go, okay, I'm gonna approach this like you're doing 12 then. And try to teach as much as possible within 6. The correcting behavior stuff is simple. We'll get that, make sure you get that information as well. You do your 6, you could take, 3 months or whatever, come back in the summer, we're ready for the second 6, I go, great, now we'll start pushing for the second half and push that reliability to be a little bit more advanced.
Question I have, the biggest, I think we're all on board, and that's why we're here, is we are going out of town in April, and she was gonna go with this woman again, who has bored her in the past, but I don't think I'm gonna be like, hey, I need you to now train
sure.
e-collar, so we'd have like an interruption of like.
So we'd start after that, is what you're saying?
So would we start, it would make sense to me to start after that, then interrupt that schedule, right?
What's your opinion on that?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter?
Nope.
You could do it or not do it?
I have, so the client that I had yesterday, last night with Charlie, they're going to Florida today. And they're going to be in Florida for a month. And what I told him was, look, while you're in Florida with your dog, watch my videos and teach some more stuff. When you come back, we'll build on what you already taught, right?
Okay.
Because what will happen is, with your person, she's going to act a full, vacation time. I don't care. Once she comes back, she's going to be a bit aloof, right? She just had a little vacation. But as soon as you kick in with discipline, she's going to just go, oh, well, I'm home now. Okay.
I'm home now.
Yeah, exactly. Same with kids.
Vacation's over.
Yeah.
Time to go back to work.
Dog behaviors change from the summer to winter, because of the snow or
Yes.
being hot.
Dogs get a little bit more excited or spazzy, as I put it, when there's snow on the ground, for sure.
Yeah.
The other option, just so you know, we board here as well, but we also reinforce training.
Yeah.
So if any of our dogs that come for daycare or boarding, they just bring them with their equipment, and then all the stuff that they've learned, we reinforce it.
Great.
So when you get her back, she'd be on the same field, we wouldn't really lose anything.
So we're not already committed, but moving forward, that's ideal,
Yeah.
right?
But either way, you decide if you want to start afterwards. Doesn't matter to me if you want to start before. Doesn't matter to me. It's not going to have any effect on the training. It's think of it as growing up when I was with my mom, very strict mom. When I was with grandma let me get away with stuff. So when I was with grandma, I played with those rules, right?
Yeah.
And then when I was with my mom and my grandma, because my grandma would override my mom, I knew I could get away with stuff. And then when I was with my mom, I had to behave myself.
Got it.
It's all about association.
Yep.
Yeah.
So she's gonna know, when I'm with, again, here,
Yeah.
I can act full. When I'm at home, I have to behave myself.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
So, nothing out the ordinary. You wouldn't be the first people, to have done that.
So to clarify, so you said your lead time is 2 weeks, so if we wanted to start, we'd start it in 2 weeks, get something on the schedule.
Right, it'd be middle of March.
It depends on what times you're looking for. Because I'm typically reversed. Most people are now with people going back to work, it's 9 to 5. So I'm usually evenings and weekends are my busiest.
Okay.
And then during the day is every now and then I get a client. Does that make sense? So if you had availability on a Tuesday afternoon, chances are there's a spot right there you could start as soon as next Tuesday. It just depends on your availability. Yeah.
So,
we can be available during the day, they wouldn't be.
well, I was gonna say, so the kids finish up, so if there was a 3:30, how long are the sessions?
An hour.
So we could do a 3:30 to 4:30. That would be before the majority of his demand, potentially. So we
Would
could
you
figure-
recommend all 4 of us be present? Or
If
is
all
that
4
too
of you
much?
were present, I would prioritize the 2 primary handlers.
Right, that's what I was thinking, because it'd be you and I when they're at school.
Oh,
And
okay.
then we would.
Because it's super simple. For the kids, the one thing for them to learn would be the heel.
Yeah.
And then the recall would be the 2 most important things that they would need to know. Okay, and everything is actually pretty straightforward. Not to forget, but we also record stuff.
Yep.
So they can always be here kids, watch the video as homework.
They're never gonna be,
Beautiful.
they're never
Okay.
gonna be alone with
So
someone
that's
walking
so
them.
that's easy. You and I could do that during the week. We're 100% flexible.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then Maria would reach out to you.
okay,
And she'd send you a form and everything. Now, if you know you want 6 or whatever, you could literally walk out and tell Maria, hey, sign us up for 6, and she'll just put you in queue.
okay.
Otherwise, she gets back to everybody, one by one or whatever.
Yeah.
But, once 2021 came, we just,
Yeah.
in terms of training with requests and new clients and stuff, which was great because 2020 was not a great year.
Right.
I think we all know that, right? So yeah, you can let her know, she'll get you in process as soon as possible. And then she'll give you the make and models that I recommended to order for Mocha here.
Okay.
And otherwise, it should be pretty straightforward. and then we just see what happens.
And to clarify, it's each one of the classes typically same time, same week,
Yes.
7 calendar days, because you want us to be
Practice.
practicing. and all
Correct,
that
right.
stuff.
Because
You
life can
can't,
happen.
you can't condense it down.
Correct, because the week.
That makes sense.
Yeah, some people have asked for it. The only time I've ever done it was actually with a client that had already worked with their other dog.
Okay.
So they got a second dog and they were going to travel and they wanted to do 12, but instead we only made it 9 because of the time frame.
Yeah.
Because it would have been as many as 3 in a week, and I was like, yeah, that's not going to work. And then even though I could make more money, I go, it's pointless.
It's just not gonna,
Yeah.
it doesn't
You need the
work.
week to make mistakes. Life's gonna happen. You may not always be able to get a chance to work a particular day,
Yeah.
right? So this allows me plenty of time to make mistakes, learn what's working, learn what's not working, and come back with information so I go, okay, this is what we do next. Okay?
Okay.
And if something happens and you skip a week, it doesn't matter because it's just more time for you to practice.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, the way that I teach with the e-collar and stuff, it's very kind of flexible.
Okay.
In terms of, it's not like you have to do regimented stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Just because it's e-collar and it's the most efficient tool when done correctly.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think that's it. I'm good. I think you're good.
Yeah,
Kids, you good?
we're
Yeah,
gonna look up
good.
that
Okay.
name, that one
Okay.
dog.
So you'll send the follow-up email to us?
Yeah, so I'm gonna email her right now.
Okay.
Because you guys are consultation number 3 today. And I send that to her and then she goes back and reaches to everyone. I just suggest if you know what you want and you're good to go, you could just turn around and send an email to her. So it just puts you right in the queue.
Yeah, we'll make a decision.
Jax. Jax.
Oh, sure. Was it a white spotted dog?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, with Marina.
Yeah.
In Lincoln Park.
Yeah, because we always walk Mocha up there and, that's when I met him.
Yeah, I have a little pocket of clients that I've
Okay.
trained there. There's Emmett, there's Jax, there's Wallace, there's a guy, Gus, who's a Bernedoodle. Then we're all right there in that.
We remember Gus.
I love Gus.
Yeah,
So-
so not his tongue sticking out. They're like, no.
See,
No.
you liked Gus because he was trained. And he wasn't biting you.
That's, well, because Gus, I think, was kind of like, Gus probably was here, in the last 6 months?
Yeah, Gus
Yeah.
finished his program in the fall.
Okay,
Yeah.
Hmm,
so we're,
interesting.
because we were
I
talking
don't
about.
remember Gus.
I remember.
I need to
Yeah.
find him.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, for the most part, yeah, she's been good up there with like the other dogs,
Mhm.
and she kind of stands back and watches everybody and doesn't really get into